Okay, here we go. And Windows, Microsoft is being amazing. Thank you, Bill Gates. This is awesome software. Totally no issues. Come on. Where are you, Epic Pen? There you are. All right, let's get everything up and running. If you're watching the recording afterwards, you can skip the first minute or two. Go here, here. Where is it? Edit. There we go. Oh, that was fast. We are channel content. There we go. Live, mod stations on, control room. That's what we're looking for. Get that further over to the side. Set this to live. All right, that all looks in order. Let's go get the bookmarks and everything up and ready. And then everybody's favorite software, Google Earth. Okay. And the monthly oil production data was, or for most countries at least, was finally released. The IA has been having delays because of the government shutdown, obviously. The same reason that my dad has not gotten paid for over a month now. That's November 6th, so it's been 5 weeks. Theoretically, it is about to end. Supposedly, in theory, they said they agreed to something over there in DC, and that's gonna like get taken care of tomorrow or this weekend. So, in theory, it's over and he should get paid, including all the back pay that they haven't paid him for the last month on this next paycheck. But we'll wait and see. There might be, some logistical delays or whatever other excuse they might try to come up with for that. But in theory, the financial urgency I was emphasizing in the last few videos or streams is potentially gone, but they could always, 180 that at the last minute. While we wait a few more moments for people to show up, I was just going to show you guys this for people who have been on Patreon on or sent stuff through either super chats or the super thanks, but the two super buttons on YouTube, or through PayPal. I'm sorry I've been forgetting about you guys this whole time, but I started including you guys on the Patreon map, which, for those who are unaware, since you're supposed to have rewards or tiers of things on Patreon, I have nothing I can actually offer anybody. So, the best that I've been able to offer people for like the 5 years I've been doing this is different tier levels get you labeled as different levels of oil exporters. There's like Persian Gulf level exporters, which also includes Russia, at least for the time being. Then there's large exporters like Brazil or Nigeria. And then there's moderate exporters like Ecuador and Colombia. So those go by the one, two, three, etc. dollars per month, and then the large ones is 5 plus, and then the Persian Gulf level ones is 10 plus. But for everybody, who just sends like one-time things from now on within the span of a particular calendar year, uh, I'll whatever the total is over that course of time, I'll divide that by 12 to get a loose equivalent, and you get to become an oil producer of that rough size. Uh, so at once we were at $80 a month on Patreon. That's down to 40 now. So I removed the dearly departed people and a lot of the one-time super chats / PayPal donating people. You've gotten stuff now as well. So we got both Jameses because there's James and then there's another James. You guys got Gabon and Congo. Janos has been given $5 a month for a couple of years, so Janos is keeping Nigeria. Uh, Zach got Chad. If you want, you can use that as an excuse to call yourself Giga Chad. Got Jacob something as Argentina. Whoever that sunglasses Giga Chad cat was from the 5 hour stream as Ecuador. Frank as Mexico. Robert as Colombia. Adam as Brazil. JB as Senegal, since they're an exporter now. David's been doing $5 a month for quite a while. Is keeping the Norway label. Brendan and Eamon are through Patreon are $10 dudes, so they get Russia and Iraq. John has been around for a while. He's keeping Turkmenistan, and Josh is about to. I need to transfer Josh over to Saudi Arabia because at first Josh was just doing $5 on Patreon starting a few years ago, but over the years, he's started like constantly giving me at random times like insane amounts of British Sport or Milka or other German chocolate, the financial value of which is rather large each year, enough to the point to where it has quite a bit of weight. So Josh is going to get transferred over to Saudi Arabia because he's been going up a staircase in like Dragon Ball Z fashion, like every series, or in this case, every year. They invent a new power up level beyond whatever the previous power up level was. But for everyone who was doing just one time stuff, you guys are on the map now as well because the map is the only thing I actually have to offer. That is like 5 minutes. That should be enough for almost everyone to be here, for everyone who is going to be here at least. So let me sip some water. And well, check chat. Be responsible. No one else in chat. No, nobody else in chat for the moment. So wait, where did Epic Pen go? Oh, there it is. Like, why aren't you showing up on the thing? You're not going to do that thing, are you? It's doing the thing. Hold on, I know how to fix this. I learned how to fix this. You draw out here, then you delete that, then you go in, and then it will work. Okay. Praise God. We learned how to fix this. So, Venezuela is happening. We all know that. Everyone knew it was coming for quite a while. Over the last few months, since August, the U.S. has moved quite a number of naval and air assets into the Caribbean, something around 11 or 12 vessels, a mixture of mostly destroyers, one missile cruiser, and the one smaller amphibious landing vehicle or amphibious transport, which is kind of like a mini aircraft carrier that carries primarily amphibious assault vehicles and a few thousand Marines and uh, like tanks and AFVs and stuff. But on its deck, in terms of air assets, it carries a few attack helicopters, along with one of our 9 regular carriers. Because remember, we have the 11 super carriers, but we also have 9 older regular carriers as well. The difference being, the difference primarily being 30 versus 70. The super carrier can carry 70 combat jets, whereas the or combat aircraft, but primarily they carry combat jets. The smaller ones will also have a mix of like attack helicopters and stuff, but the smaller regular aircraft carriers of the same like variety that the UK or Japan have, for example, can only usually carry around 30. If they're smaller, sometimes 20. But there is one of the really small carriers, not really carrier, but the amphibious assault vehicle that does have attack helicopters and some drones and stuff, but primarily is carrying ground assets to be potentially deployed. Well, I really doubt we'd want to go that angle because most of the stuff could just be accomplished with airstrikes. But there's also that regular carrier with 30 combat aircraft assets, varying from Harriers to, I believe, AH-1Z is the designation. Vipers, it's the Cobra attack helicopter, but it's an upgraded variant. Now, however, we also have, oops, no, I have to go to mouse to scroll out, go over here. A few days ago, they crossed through the Strait of Gibraltar, so at regular steaming speed, they should be right around the mid-Atlantic ridge at the moment. So they're on their way. The Gerlad Ford supercarrier strike group, which will be comprised of the Gerlad Ford supercarrier with 70 combat jets, assortment of F-18s and F-35s, along with 4 accompanying additional destroyers, and I believe, I draw it over here, I believe just 1 missile cruiser. There might be 2, but I think it's just 1. Plus also 2 attack subs that are not announced as part of any carrier strike group, but they are there. That's part of the doctrine. So that additional sledgehammer head of force is being brought in because we are doing Venezuela. Like, I really hope no one is still in denial about that at this point. Anyone who is somehow either really new or just not aware, the reasoning behind everything is Venezuela is capable of quite a high level of oil production. They did hold 3 million barrels per day off and on for a while. Actually, hold on. What am I doing? We could just go to the graphs. Go to the graphs. Oil production. Go down to Venezuela. This is Venezuela long term. See, back there, they even got up over 3 in the past. Then they had their internal crises and everything. They dropped. Then they got back up. Then they had the Chavez takeover and revolution, and they kind of stalled out. And then the sanction times came, and the country collapsed. And roughly 60% of their oil and gas engineers were among the 7 million people who fled the country. So even if they were still connected to the outside world in a high degree and were able to restore the oil and gas infrastructure, they have less than half of the actual personnel of their original oil and gas industry left to even manage all of that with. And as always, if you want any of those graphs or any kinds of similar ones, there's a link under any video I've made in the last year or so right here under the PayPal and Patreon ones. There's a link right here to the free access drive, which takes you to Google Drive, which has all the different subfolders that will then take you to additional subfolders, but will then take you to all the different graphs you can access at any time you want. That's all free and everything. But anyways, where did Epic Pen go? Don't do this to me again. Ah, thank you. You look new. I don't recognize that name. Let's see. Fix the Epic Pen issue again. I don't know why it has started having this problem. I've never seen any other streamers have it give them this issue. But anyway, so the reasoning is, of course, that Venezuela cannot really restore that level of oil production, even though it's capable of it, because of the sheer incomprehensible scale of what lies under the Orinoco Basin. Even with the assistance of Chevron, they've only been able to restore it over the course of like 6 years, up to 1 million barrels per day now. So, and that is with what little they've allowed Chevron to do. So at this point, the angle the Pentagon Strategic Center, whatever its secret name might actually be, the angle thereafter is knock out this government, have it replaced by the opposition, which has already preemptively greenlit any and all outside oil assistance to enter and rapidly restore Venezuela up to at least 3 million barrels per day. If not, and this would probably also be the intention, expand that capacity across the Orinoco Basin to its full capability, which would probably be something more like between 5 and 6 million barrels per day, which would then be capable, because of the scale of what's in the Orinoco Basin, it would be capable of producing at that level for at least the entire 21st century. And that would be a perpetual supply onto the markets, adding decent market security, and would be one immediately nearby that would be, backyard secure for us from the US's perspective, especially when paired with rising Guyana and having, a perpetual 5 or 6 million barrels per day production in Canada and the ever rising production from Brazil, which we're going to keep buying. So that's the overall reason for it. I had initially expected this might have come later. Like, I kind of thought we were waiting for Maduro to try his ridiculous idea of invading Guyana, and that then we were going to use that as a pretext to knock him out of power. But it looks like uh, because we are going to get directly involved in the Taiwan conflict when that starts, it looks like the Pentagon wants to just get Venezuela over and done with now, just get this out of the way so that we will have as few other windows of things tying us down when the whole Taiwan stuff starts, since that's going to uh, be rather large and require quite a bit of attention. Let me take a break for water. Now, Somalia. So, some of you may remember we go all the way back. Let's go way, way back. I think it was not last December, not last year's November. It was the November before that, I think. It would be close. Would it be 2 years ago? Yeah, or close to 2 years ago. Yeah, so you remember 2 years ago, I made that video about how Somalia oil and gas exploration had finally started after various delays, and it was originally about to start in 2019, but then you had COVID mess everything up by crashing oil prices for so long, and they took multiple years to recover. Once they recovered in 2023, then the oil and gas industries, had capital expenditure leeway again. So oil and gas exploration began offshore of Somalia, and multiple finds have been found offshore. There's going to be more oil and gas onshore of Somalia because of the way the combined onshore and offshore topography and geology work out. However, the industry does not yet consider onshore Somalia to be uh, safe enough. That's my best skull and crossbones emblem. It does not consider onshore Somalia to be guaranteed safe enough to operate in yet. So they're going to be sticking to offshore. And several potential findings were made offshore. And now, next year, in the early part of next year, starting at least, the first, let's get the ocean up here. Let's get the ocean floor here. Or sorry, it's a slope. So let's do waves. And then we have a downward slope of the ocean floor here. Next year, the first exploratory drilling is going to begin. Do my best attempt at a drill ship here. I am an author, not an artist. My friend from Belarus is an artist. She's the one drawing the characters in my writing project. But I am just the one who writes stuff. So then you come down through here. So the first exploratory drilling is going to begin next year in each of the supposed finds that the seabed sound testing revealed, the purpose of which is obviously to drill in and see if it is in fact oil and or gas, because the way the testing goes is we put sonic waves into the seabed or the regular ground if it's onshore, and the way they come bouncing back will be different based on what they hit. And the way they act when they hit an oil and gas reservoir looks a certain way, but it's never a 100% guarantee. In modern day, with modern techniques, it's close to like 97 or 98%, something like that, in the upper 90s. But there are rare instances where there are types of layers of rock that, when combined together, kind of look the same, but end up not being oil and gas. But it is rare. The last time that I remember hearing about it happening, uh, except for except for that or sorry, there was a time way more recently than I was thinking about. Just earlier this year, there was one in offshore Norway where it ended up just being rock and not being oil and gas. Before that, I remember back in the late 2000s in Chesapeake Bay, one of the few times oil and gas exploration has been conducted on the offshore, even if you consider Chesapeake Bay to be offshore on the East Coast, where they did think they found oil under the, I guess, harbor floor, not sea floor, of Chesapeake Bay in Virginia and between Virginia and Maryland. And they drilled into it, and it ended up just being that one type of rock, or one type of combination of rocks that comes back looking like it's an oil and gas deposit. So they're going to be doing the exploratory or test drilling next year on each of the things they found to see if they are in fact oil and gas deposits or if they were just look-alike rocks. But given the high 90s percentile level of accuracy that sounding has in present day, it's most likely that they are all actually oil deposits. And since Somalia, you can see, has a slope offshore, so it's going down like this and steeper in some places. That is where you will predominantly find mostly oil, whereas flat places are where you'll predominantly find gas. For example, you go over here, you have this open, really shallow, flat seabed between Malaysia, and also between Malaysia and Indonesia, and then between Indonesia and Indonesia. And what's been found there has predominantly been gas. Most of Indonesia's oil was onshore of Java along here, which you can see coming down from the mountain chain here. You can even see the river channels coming down. So that's a slope, an onshore slope specifically. That's why that was where a lot of oil was found. When it's a flat area, that tends to be mostly gas. So Somalia is, with the exception of a little tiny bit hugging the shore right there, it's predominantly sloping down offshore, so it's going to be mostly oil. And onshore, it is also mostly a slope. So even onshore would also be mostly oil. Hold on, trying to get this off my screen. Something on my screen. Let me rub it off with my sleeve, I guess. Or maybe this one. Okay, there we go. Maps. The topography maps. Did I have one of Somalia specifically? No. I think because most of them were really low resolution. So we'll have to work with this one. It's gonna look a bit bad zooming in, but you can see there, Somalia, you can see how it's sloping, and especially down there when it gets near the Kenya border, it's really shallow from former river basins, but it's sloping towards the ocean, so it's going to be mostly oil. And Epic Pen disappeared again. Somaliland, that most of what Somalia has is not really going to be in Somaliland. I mean, they can try, but they're like you can see it there in that it's mostly not necessarily mountains. Those start once you get into Ethiopia, but it's mostly like up jutted highlands when you get into like the northwestern part of Somalia or what is Somaliland. There's that little bit of green there where you would be likely to find stuff right as it connects to right as it connects to Djibouti. But because of the way the whole rift system is going in that like region of Africa and Asia, there's a lot of stuff that could have gone wrong geologically that may have like scattered stuff too much to where it wouldn't have formed like proper deposits. Most of the oil and gas is like 90 plus percent is going to be in the regular eastern two-thirds of Somalia. But stop, Epic Pen, stop doing this. Okay, we got that. Let me come out. Let me come over here. So for now, it's predominantly offshore, and I'll be covering this in the short specific video I do on this very soon in the next few days. But most of the stuff at the moment is being done by a Turkish company who's trying to get into the oil and gas industry. They're trying to enter the field as a larger player. So they're getting people in Somalia's hopes up a bit too high at the moment by overstating the things they find, and the means of which they are doing that is by going with the maximum possibility and also putting specifically what would you call it? Disarming or not disingenuous escape hatch languaging in front of it, as so that they can backtrack and say that like we didn't actually say that there was that much. We said there could be. Like the exact quote that the company has been issuing is that uh, there three levels of escape hatch. There could quite possibly be, and then also adding up to as much as, and then adding in the best case scenario. So they've and the number they've been claiming is 20 billion, but it's if that's going to be like the upper possible range, and they're going to be claiming that for the sake of drawing in investor dollars, because like I said, this is the company that's doing the exploration that's claiming this number, and they are a smaller Turkish oil and gas company, so they want to grow, they want to get in as a bigger player, and uh, gradually drilling and producing oil and gas in larger amounts across the globe over time kind of takes time. You know, the industry giants that exist right now kind of took the last century plus to get to the point that they're at. So the only way to get there quicker is to do the whole pump and dump market hype thing and draw in investor cash quickly, which is working for them at the moment as they are attracting investor cash. But they claim 20. In reality, if that, as I suspect, is probably the upper boundary, then the actual real amount is going to be more like probably 6 or 8 billion barrels that have been found so far, mind you. In the these aren't the exact locations, but in the three main finds that they came across. But 6 or 8 billion is still a really large amount. That's like half of what Guyana's fines have gotten up to at this point, which the first half of Guyana's fines, which would be equivalent to this roughly, have taken Guyana up, to 600, 700, 800,000 plus barrels per day. So that is still a really sizable amount of oil that would, taking a safety amount for like a production level, probably be able to pull out something like 400 to 500,000 barrels per day, but possibly more than that. And then again, there is going to be further exploration in the future and more stuff's going to be found, which will then add on to that. But the speed at which it gets developed, that will be up to investor decisions by said Turkish company. Uh, I cannot pronounce things in Turkish, so forgive me. I'm not trying to say that company's name. But also, what what were the other things? Time frame. So next year, 2026, is when the exploratory drilling is conducted, the test drilling to see if those finds are uh, bullet point one, actually oil and gas. Let's put a question mark there. Bullet point two, if they are, then to take column tests or core samples and test flow rates, see how much is in there, how well does it flow through the porosity of the rock layer, and thus how much would come up through X number of wellheads if they're drilled, how much water would need to be pumped in to get additional pressure to pump at a faster rate, and third bullet point, the particular type. Is it generic, good regular crude oil? Is it light, like what you usually find with shale? Is it heavy, like what you usually find with bitumen and tar sand type stuff, like in Canada and Venezuela? Because light stuff, like you usually get out of shale, is only the lighter hydrocarbons. You can only use it to make certain oil products like plastics and lighter fuels like gasoline. If it's particularly heavy, then you can't really make the lighter stuff, at least without doing a more costly refining process to break it down further. But you can really easily make jet fuel and diesel and pavement and stuff out of the heavier stuff. Or if it's the generic regular crude, like say what comes out of the Persian Gulf, then that means it's a nice mixture of all the different lengths and chains of hydrocarbon molecules. So 2026, next year, is the test drilling year. And if they make the decision to actually go for production and initiate drilling and infrastructure setup with immediately after testing those, like how fast it went in Guyana, for example, then Guyana, it was 2015 was where the test drilling happened, and the decision was made around the end of that year to commit to it. And so 2015 slash beginning of 2016 to 2019 was when the first production started happening. So on a high speed process, it would be about 3, maybe 4 years. It would depend. That is if the stuff turns out to be high quality, and if the particular Turkish oil company that's doing this decides to commit immediately after doing the testing. So that would give you, at the earliest for the oil actually coming out of the ground would be 2029, maybe 2030, which is which would put Somalia basically along the same entry time frame as Namibia, as 2028 was initially expected, but now it's been pushed to 2029. 2029 is when the first offshore field offshore of Namibia is going to activate. It was initially scheduled for late 2028, but it's been pushed to early 2029. So Namibia will be coming online at the end of this decade, and then probably within 1, maybe 2 years at the most after that, Somalia will then be coming online as well. within the same general time frame. Starting up just a few years before Saudi Arabia reaches the end of its ability to maintain its claimed infinite 10 million barrel per day plateau, which will soon be revealed to reach its limits, and they'll start a very gradual decline after that. But at current rates, they'll reach that limit around 2032 or 2033, unless they return to production cuts and drop back down from their plateau again, and then they can push that date further out into the future. Okay, that was we did Venezuela, Somalia, then Russia, Ukraine now, and I think there were a few other minor things. But other than that, it would be done after that. Anybody else in chat? No. Nobody on either end. Okay. For anybody who's shown up recently who did not already go back on the timeline, just so everybody knows, if anybody who did uh, sends money through the super chat or super thanks YouTube buttons or through PayPal recently, uh, I had completely just neglected doing so, but I started adding you guys to what was at first just the Patreon map. Since I said at the start of the video, the only reward I can legitimately give anybody for being on Patreon or for now just sending stuff directly one time through any of the other means is by this stupid pretend map where the level of what you sent gets you labeled as specific levels of oil exporter. The only inaccuracy on this map is that Josh is getting moved over to Saudi Arabia. But those of you who did like one-time stuff recently, especially since been in the whole situation with my dad not getting paid, you guys have been added to the map at various associated levels now. In the rare, unlikely event that this via any avenue like fills up, then I'll switch over to an additional one for gas exporters. But since it was originally for Patreon, which is recurring indefinite monthly until someone cancels it, for one time or multiple one time stuff within the same calendar year, it will count for that calendar year, but then that space will get cleared again until or once the next one starts. But anyways, we had quite a new set of Epic Pens doing it again. Please stop doing this, Epic Pen. Here we go. We had quite a number of new things. We had the refinery was struck in Yaroslavl. The refinery in Nizhny was struck again. The refinery in was it Volgograd or Saratov? One of them was struck again. But also now it was pointed out to me something I did not realize initially on my own. The various long range electricity transmission stations and power lines that have Ukraine's been striking with drones are not just random ones. They're actually along a specific set of lines that carry electricity from lower populated, higher power generating regions to the much more populated and much more power consuming Moscow. So there's a clear actual choke off strategy going on there that I was not otherwise seeing at the time. And okay, it was Volgograd, not Saratov. So not this one, but this one in terms of refineries that was struck again. And the secondary slash tertiary strikes on them is double beyond like double tapping, because in doing so, since again remember all these refineries have been struck multiple times already, hitting them again and again like this after all these strikes that already happened that damaged them substantially in the first place in August and September. Now these are uh, A, disrupting the repair operations, B, destroying the repair equipment and the replacement machinery and stuff that was brought in, and also most likely, unless unless the crews were like not working 24/7, this also likely killing the repair technicians as well, which limits Russia's number of oil and gas repair technicians, but also gradually makes the job less and less appetizing to work in. So more oil and gas infrastructure repair technicians are A, likely to leave the profession or quote unquote retire early, or engineering students are potentially just likely to not sign up for the job when they're done with engineering college. Excuse me, click on the thing. Thank you. Also, some strikes directly on power plants themselves. And oh yeah, wait for the lag, and we're back. So the oil export terminal has been struck again. So it has to be a sub district of Tuapse in Novorossiysk, because that looks like a tiny village. Oh no, it is an oil export terminal. I guess it is just a tiny village that is, yeah, given the low number of houses there, it's probably literally composed of the only residents are the oil export terminal workers. Ooh, and that also looks like a coal and potentially iron ore export terminal as well, with bulk carriers there. So that's some extended extra damage. But the Tuapse oil export terminal was also struck multiple times, and several tankers were hit in it. So both damage to the transfer infrastructure and the tankers themselves. And you can see this sharp increase through this graph here, heading up on a very steep line. This is the amount of Russian oil that is sitting in tankers offshore around the world. It would normally be steady at a but any country's amount of this would usually be steady for an oil exporter, that is, at a particular amount, as you know, some tankers are offloading at their target destinations, uh, and then coming back empty while others are filling up at home and going out. If it goes down, that means a lot is being offloaded really fast. So this was probably uh, during China's last minute super over purchasing to try to fill up their stockpiles ahead of either next year or 2027. But this going up, the amount out at sea going up this fast is indicative of it kind of being stranded as it's not being offloaded. Because in this case, now now that the U.S. has extended secondary sanctioning threats to uh, previously exempt countries like India who potentially purchased Russian oil and who did up until this point. Now, the people who were still purchasing Russian oil have stopped, with the exception of China. But Turkey and India have now stopped. So now more and more is just kind of sitting there and doesn't have any buyers outside of China that it's going to, which is, kind of a bad situation to be in because, you can't keep doing this if the oil's not really going anywhere. It has to go somewhere. Otherwise, you're gonna run out of tankers eventually. And we all know, in terms of onshore stuff, the sheer scale and amount of depots all over Russia that have been hit There's not a lot of space onshore to store it. So eventually you would reach a point where there's nowhere really left for it to go. And so you'd have to kind of stop it at the source in the first place. Talking from Russia's perspective, from the operator's perspective, you would eventually find yourself in a position up against a wall where you'd kind of just have to cut it at the wellhead because it can't go anywhere. And if everything is full, tankers and onshore storage facilities, then the only place left for it to go is the pipelines themselves, which will then eventually burst because they're supposed to transport oil, not store oil. So the apart from sales to China, the reason that they're probably still putting out as much as before to the point of like creating this gradual uh or not really gradual, the sharp upward surge in oil that's not really going anywhere is because they want to not have to shut down the actual production infrastructure, since doing so, and I believe I've talked about the reasons for this before in, I'm pretty sure it was a video on Syria, like about how why Syria and Yemen will never get back to their former levels of oil production after being shut down for like a decade and a half. When you shut down oil fields, as you got oil, it's not an empty cavern. Remember, it's a porous layer of rock, and it's got all this pressure on it all around it from miles and miles of rock and all the teratons of weight that that's pushing down on it. You got all the oil in there, and it's super pressurized. When you puncture it with a drill pipe, then it flows along a pressure gradient because you've opened a way up and out for the oil to go. Do your little outward uh, spindle top spurt thing. So the pressure around it, drives it to then flow up and out that opening. If you cut off that opening, then it can't go up and out. However, within within the reservoir itself, it was at a lighter pressure rate around, wherever the wellheads were, and out on the peripheries, it was still at higher pressure. And when the outward flow is cut off, when it can't go anywhere, from the peripheries and areas still under higher pressure and volume, it will flow from those into those lessened areas closer to where the actual like the production wells entered the reservoir, and thus the overall pressure gradients in net total will be less when you return only one squiggly line than it was when you were still producing. Not by like a gargantuan amount, but it will be less, and you will not be able to return to the original quantities. Which is why, for example, Yemen, after peaking at like 600,000 barrels per day, had declined down naturally to around 400 before the Yemen civil war started. They went off the grid completely and have over time gradually restored themselves limply back up to like I think 90 or something like that. But even if they went completely stable politically, they would never be able to go back up completely to 400 because of the underground effects that I just described. In Yemen's case, for example, after like a decade and a half, they could probably still maybe get up to 300, like possibly, but that would, it would be a bit iffy, especially in Yemen's case specifically. So even on this cutoff, where they're now down to just China, as observed by said behavior already, Russia is probably going to still keep sending tankers out, even if most of them are tankers to nowhere, or the proverbial bridge to nowhere. Because if you stop, then the onshore storage will quickly fill up, especially given how much has been destroyed. And once there's nowhere left for it to go, then you'd have to actually start massively cutting back the production itself, which would be a level of, I guess, ego blow that Moscow doesn't really want to deal with, at least not yet. They'd want to put it off as long as they possibly can. There's some of the stuff, specifically from some of the long distance, in this case, 750 kilovolts or 750,000 volts long range transmission lines. There's some of the massive fires that were started at the Nizhny Novgorod oil refinery. That is petrochemical plant, so liquid oil end products. When the difference between plastic and petrochemical, basically, for the most part, is plastic is a solid, like standalone molecularly is a solid, and petrochemical usually, commercially at least, is referring to a oil product other than the fuels and other than pavement that is liquid. So like paints and protective coatings and stuff, shampoos and soaps, including bar soap and things like deodorant. Because even though the bar soap and a stick of deodorant, even though those are semi-solid in the form you're holding them, they're primarily solid because of things that are mixed around them that give them a semi-solid form. But the actual active petrochemical components to them would be liquids by themselves. Uh, so plastic is uh, most of the solid stuff, like all the various types of plastic you're used to interacting with, polyethylene, polypropylene, polybutylene, PVC pipes, the other PVC, polyvinyl carbide, uh, poly, uh, uh, what's the other one? The various polyacrylic compounds. Rubber technically is under the plastic umbrella, but under commercial and industrial definitions, it does usually get categorized as a separate thing just because it's a big critical thing that we've separately identified for so long at this point that it does get its own category. Map of various electricity, gas furnace, and heating and water outages throughout Russia. Above the with a plus at the end, meaning above the normal like background levels or pre-war levels, basically. 500 kilovolt transmission station in Volgograd. More stuff from the Nizhny plant. Another petrochemical plant. This one was struck in Bashkortostan. Which one is this? That is, yeah. These are the fires at the Tuapse export terminal. Is that oh, okay. I thought it was just Volgograd. Never mind. When I was disputing between which the two it was, whether Volgograd or Saratov, apparently Saratov refinery was also struck again for a fourth time. So, forgive me, it was not a choice between the two, it was actually both. So, it was a very, very active week for Ukrainian drone and missile strikes on critical infrastructure within Russia. And that's it for those two. Now, there were a few other small news item things that I did want to address, but as usual, my brain is malfunctioning and I'm forgetting what they were. Uh, on. I'm trying to restart it. like the old hand crank for the engine priming on the original models of cars back in the 1910s and 20s. You restart my brain operations. Okay, it's not working out at the moment. Let me at least check chat then. There's nothing from chat. Chat is dead. Uh oh, Cutler. Cutler did finally update their data, and by that I mean that their data went like this for their oil production. After leaving OPEC, they went up to higher levels like they wanted to. And they declined down like this, added a field extension that brought them back up here, and were fluctuating around, but then went seemingly completely flat at an exact number month after month after month for 2 straight years. And as I've said before, I know that number's not real. It's just probably they've been around that number, and so they haven't cared to actually change it and report the real one. But now they have updated their data retroactively and showed the actual squiggly real level that it has been over time. The only other one that has been doing that still, like reporting the exact same number over and over and over again, is Turkmenistan, at least as a ongoing means of practice. Russia has started doing similar in just the last few months this year, ever since they decided that they're just not going to put the effort into because they classified their oil and gas data because they didn't want to have to admit that they're losing production anymore. So they classified it instead of reporting real numbers. They initially just started reporting higher fake numbers, and they did report like differences in it. They reported changes and everything. Now, for the last few months, they've just kind of like I can't really properly draw a shrug emote. Let's do a stick figure, do a stick figure, and sure, that's one arm. This is another arm. Let's draw bumps here. Yeah, those are shoulders. Those aren't biceps, those are shoulders. So they're just like shrugging and just not putting the effort in to even type like a random number into an Excel spreadsheet anymore. So that was one of them. But I'm still trying to remember what was the other one. Scroll down further on. Scroll down further. Other than these, no. Oh yeah, this little update. Difficult to get exact information out of it, as there's not a lot of people there reporting. There's not a lot of internet connectivity, and there's also, you know, the Sudanese government is trying their best to hide it. But Sudan, on top of having the civil war and having like many semi inter-ethnic genocides going on the sidelines, now there's multiple like state there's multiple like state sanctioned massacres going on. So now on top of the civil war, the micro genocides committed on the sidelines by independent groups. Now Sudan is kind of also starting to genocide itself on top of everything else that's the country's been enduring over the last 4 years. So I'm assuming one of the two leaders who've been fighting each other is probably resorting to doing this out of like spite and as like a means of venting anger, basically over the fact that they're not able to win, but neither one of them has been able to definitively defeat the other one. So it's a means basically of taking out aggression because you are failing to actually take out your aggression on your opponent. Oh, oh, yeah. So, sorry, I did remember the other thing. So, uh, Mali, the watch me get it wrong and have somehow completely confused it in my head, and it's actually Burkina Faso. I'm pretty sure it's Mali. Uh, Mali, after kind of losing most of its ground to the Tuaregs in the northern portion, Mali, the capital region is now kind of somewhat under besiegement by local Al Qaeda affiliate groups. The Tuareg rebels they're a separatist group of the like ethnic peoples of northern Mali that want northern Mali to be a separate country, probably called Tuareg or something similar. So they pushed up to like around where their desired border would be. And after that display of immense weakness by the Malian government, since they don't want anything to do with France anymore, nor with anybody else other than uh, Russian mercenaries who have failed to hold off the terrorist groups. So after this double-edged show of abject military failure and incompetence, the within the southern portion of Mali, the local various terrorist and insurgent groups are now uh, pushing the government's control out of the surrounding regions and are slowly encroaching on the capital region. And by that, I don't mean they're like literally right around the capital city and that the government control only has like 10 square miles or something left, but a general amorphous amoebic blob uh, border definition around something you could label as the capital region. But they're pressing in on it, and these are different groups. A number of them are basically Al Qaeda affiliates. Al Qaeda, the African edition, but there are others. So they're in kind of a loose alliance at the moment, trying to topple the Malian government. They they're not they're not trying to topple the rebel establishment in the Tuareg region, since given the fact that they kind of were able to push both Russian mercenaries and the Malian military out of the north, the Tuareg alliance has kind of proven that they're the stronger military force between the two halves of Mali. So, Al Qaeda is obviously targeting the weaker party between the two, since given how much fervor the like separatism has up here, especially after various mistreatments over the years by the ruling South, they have a lot of fire behind them, and so the sort of loose alliance of different insurgent and terrorist groups down here kind of seem to understand that they would lose this fight if they tried it. Even if it just turned into a sacrifice by numbers type stuff, they would still just not really be able to overcome the building momentum up there. But the crumbling Malian government structure, that seems like a juicy donut to bite into, so they're going for it. Now, if they do like actually topple the Malian government, or effectively, since it was like a seventh coup after many other coups, it's a junta like every other junta. Uh, the they if they do succeed at it though, they will likely then break out into fighting each other because, like I said, there's multiple different groups involved. The Al Qaeda groups will probably stay allied with each other to fight the others. My phone is ringing. Whoever's calling me can I'll just call him back. But yeah, they will probably break into fighting each other. obviously, afterwards, but they are gradually encroaching on the capital. So that was the other thing that I almost forgot. But now you know because now I didn't forget it. Now that's probably everything that we got. Oh, you guys are live. Excellent. Well, you soon won't be because this is probably the end of the stream. As I don't think. Yeah, no, there's no like void in my mind right now that's telling me like you're still forgetting something. I'm pretty sure that was it. Out of things that I talk about. I'm sure there's other news that other people care about more than me, like such and such, I don't know, athlete is dead or something like that. But out of things that I talk about, I'm pretty sure that's everything, at least of major significance for the moment. So unless anything else comes up in any form from chat, I'll check in a few seconds to allow for the stream delay. Then that's where this is going to end. And then over the next few days, I'll try to do the non-OPEC oil production levels video, along with I'll put out a brief short video specifically dedicated to the Somalia oil drilling next year. And then the other regular updates that come around the middle of the month will come at the middle of the month. I I don't think there was any other specific. Yeah, I don't think there was any other specific event things that happened recently that warranted dedicated videos, but those will come if they happen, obviously. All right, let's see. Give it a few more seconds to see if there was anything that was going to require me to address further. Otherwise, that's going to be it. Figure, yeah, I'll let it go 107.24. I'll let it go till 108.00. So actually, while I wait just to see if anything else comes, I will check who that was on my phone. That better not have been you, Josh. 907. That's an Alaska number. That's from back up home. I have no idea who it is, though. That number's not in my contacts, but I'll find out. Anyways, looks like that's going to be it. So thank you, everybody.